The Senate once again failing to advance the House-passed funding bill that would end the shutdown for the 12th time. The Senate is set to take a key test vote today on a bill to pay military personnel and some federal workers. That measure is expected to fail. Republicans on Capitol Hill are now discussing a plan that would extend current government funding levels through December of 2026. Joining me now is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, good morning. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So you voted no on the most recent continuing resolution bill. What specific provisions or omissions in that bill led you to that no vote, sir?
Well, the debate is over what our spending level should be. The Republican plan, if passed, would lead to about a $2 trillion deficit next year. The Democrat plan, if passed, would lead to about a $3 trillion deficit. So really, I'm not for either one of those. The Republican plan continues the Biden spending levels from December of 2024. The great irony is that every Democrat voted for these spending levels last December, and now every Democrat is voting no, even though it's the same spending levels. My opposition is different. My opposition is that I think the debt threatens our national security, threatens our economic security, and I don't think we can keep piling on debt at this rate. We've just turned $38 trillion for the overall U.S. debt, and we have real problems ahead of us with devaluation of our currency, inflation, rising prices. So someone's got to hold the line and just say, we can't keep doing it the same way.
Yeah, and I know that the president has been critical of you being vocal about this. I mean, and you have been described, I mean, you really are a fiscal hawk. You've been very critical of unchecked spending in Washington. But in this particular bill, what failed your standard for fiscal discipline, specifically in this? And what if it was revised or changed? Because we might get there because of the calendar. What would get you to a yes?
It's the level of spending. So, for example, these are the Biden spending levels that are now in the Republican CR. I know it's confusing, but the Republicans adopted the Biden spending levels after being very critical of them in last year's campaign. They then adopted the Biden spending levels. But this year it led to about a $1.8 trillion deficit for the year. The projection is $2.1 trillion at these spending levels, so it'd have to be less. What happened during the pandemic is spending went up 25%. So the curve's going along like this. It jumps up in the pandemic, but we've never gone back to where we were on the curve. So what I would support would be something that has less deficit. So, for example, my penny plan budget that I would propose in its first year might have a $1 trillion deficit, but that would be half of what we're doing now. Then the following year would be $500 billion, the following year $250 billion, and by 5 years you would actually balance the budget. That's something I would support. But I'm not going to support the status quo, because if everybody around here flip-flops and then everybody supports the status quo, then there are no Republicans left who actually believe in balanced budgets. Right now, I'm the only one left in the Senate who's saying, I'm not voting for budgets that have massive deficits.
Okay. Well, you are hosting a lunch today with Senator Gary Peters. So I wanted to hear what you're expecting. We had Senator Blackburn on earlier. She's plans to stop by. But what are you expecting to get out of this lunch?
Well, we occasionally have bipartisan lunches, and it was actually scheduled before the shutdown. But with the shutdown, it's a good time to sit down at the same table with Democrats and just have conversations. You know, I've been having conversations on the floor with other Democrats, several of the other Democrats, about how we could fix this. And I think there is a way to fix this and a way to move forward. And I think actually there are enough discussions going on that it will end soon, maybe in the next week or two. But this lunch will be a good chance for everybody to break bread together. And I find that they've been very helpful in trying to increase the conversations and possibility for negotiation.
Okay, I want to ask you about that, about the calendar. But for, a lot of these Democrats, though, well, the Democrats are expected to block this bill from Senator Ron Johnson that would pay some federal employees, the Shutdown Fairness Act. That test vote again today, 12:15. Are you a yes or a no on that?
I will vote to pay the workers, because even if you were to adopt my penny plan, I wouldn't cut the workers' pay. That's not how I'm going to save money. I might not add new workers, but I wouldn't immediately cut people's pay. I think that's not the way you would balance the budget. So I am for paying the workers, for paying the soldiers. I will vote that way. I think it's a very difficult and potentially dangerous vote for Democrats. Look, we have a governor's race in Virginia right now. The 3 counties that are adjacent to D.C. have a lot of government workers. And if the Democrats are going to now vote not to pay the workers that are essential, I think that could have devastating consequences. That the governor's race has gotten closer there. The attorney general's got all kinds of problems. The Democrat for saying he would kill his opponent or his opponent's children. That race is tightening. And then if we have a vote today, and if the Democrats vote not to pay the workers, I could see a lot of government workers either voting Republican or not voting at all because they're disgruntled and unhappy with the Democrats.
You said that you think that the shutdown could end in maybe the next week or two. We had Congressman Michael Rulli on this morning on the program. He's hearing Democrats openly in the hallways and at the club bragging about their role in the shutdown. Some saying they want this to go to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one way of trying to move forward, though, is to open parts of it. So if we pay workers, that's about 10 to 15% of the total opening of government. So just by paying workers opens about 10% more. We have several spending bills that have been passed, and why I don't always vote for the final product because of the amount of spending. I usually will vote to get onto the bills so we can at least process them and move forward towards a decision of a spending level. So there's about 6 or 7 of these that we may be able to do in the next week or so. So the Democrats keep it closed. What's going to happen is individual spending bills are going to come forward, and that's actually the way taxpayers should want to see it. Instead of one big, enormous omnibus bill that nobody knows what's in it and is printed in the dead of night, we do it in an orderly fashion. There's 12 different appropriation or spending bills. That's what we ought to do it. Some of that's going to happen in the next week or two if the Democrats still keep the government closed, and they'll have to make a decision. They're going to vote against paying the workers, paying the soldiers, and are they going to vote against individual spending bills that they already supported in committee? So there's a lot of problems for them here. That's why I think ultimately they're going to have to allow the spending levels to continue and then negotiate for another day.
Do you have a drop-down date where, you know, like how long? I mean, are you willing to go without a deal? I mean, how long can we tolerate a shutdown, and how long do you think you?
Yeah,
do you want better terms?
Right, yeah. I don't think that's the way I look at it. The way I look at it is when given a chance, I will vote for responsible spending levels. I will vote to pay the workers. That's the first thing that's going to happen. That's going to happen today. There will be a vote today on paying the people who are showing up for work. All the staff, all the people working on the Hill, people working in the agencies that are essential, and most importantly, paying our soldiers who are defending the country. So that's a big vote. And I would suggest if the Democrats vote no on it, that we vote on it every day, because it needs to be emphasized to the American people that paying the people who work here, even for me, the most fiscally conservative member of the Senate, I will vote to pay the workers because you can't employ people and not pay them.
Well, before you go, and again, going back to your reputation as the fiscal hawk, you know, we had this recent Treasury analysis that found that the U.S. budget deficit actually shrank to $1.78 trillion for fiscal year 2025. That is a decrease of $41 billion from last year. You know, the U.S. government's gross national debt did surpass $38 trillion. I'm sure you did not want to see that. And that's the fastest accumulation of $1 trillion in debt outside of the pandemic, Senator. You know, and you mentioned the six-penny plan, and I'm glad that you brought that up earlier. But there is progress being made. I mean, you know, the President Trump is definitely not continuing the Biden spending plans that were in place.
Well, actually, we are. The spending levels for Congress that we passed in March are the Biden spending levels. The Republican CR that we're voting on, we voted on 12 times so far that I voted against, is the Biden spending levels. The projection for these spending levels next year will be $2.1 trillion. Our deficit is about 6% of GDP, and it's a problem. You know, we can't keep running the country this way. So something dramatically has to get better.
Oh, all right. Well, Senator Rand Paul, so glad you joined us this morning, and we really do appreciate your time, sir. We're going to be watching everything today. Thank you.